Before we get into today's big college football story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join the channel for daily updates on Ohio State, Big Ten football, and all the biggest coaching moves around the country. Now let's get into it, because this one is a Buckeye reunion you probably didn't see coming. When Brian Hartline officially took the head coaching job at USF, everyone knew one thing was almost guaranteed: Ohio State fingerprints were going to be all over this new program. And that's exactly what we're seeing already. In just a short time, Hartline has started building his South Florida staff and roster with familiar faces from Columbus, and the latest move makes that connection even stronger. Two former Ohio State football players are now officially part of the USF coaching staff, bringing scarlet and gray culture straight into Tampa. Those two names, KJ Hill and Toby Wilson. If you're an Ohio State fan, you definitely know them, and if you're a USF fan, you should be excited about what this means for the direction of the program. Let's break down what's happening, why it matters, and how this could shape the future of South Florida football. A Buckeye blueprint in Tampa. When Brian Hartline left Ohio State, it wasn't just another coaching change. This was one of the most respected position coaches in the country stepping out on his own to build something new. Hartline helped create the receiver pipeline at Ohio State, a system that produced NFL stars year after year. So when he took over at USF, it was clear he wasn't going to start from scratch. He was going to start with people he trusted. That's how you build a culture fast. That's how you change a program. And that's why he's turning to former Buckeyes who already understand his expectations, his standards, and his style of football. KJ Hill joins as offensive analyst. Let's start with KJ Hill, one of the most productive wide receivers in Ohio State history. Hill played for the Buckeyes from 2015 to 2019, and at one point, he held the all-time receptions record for the program, until it was eventually broken by Emeka Egbuka. That alone tells you how consistent and reliable Hill was during his career. But what makes this hire even more meaningful is the relationship between Hill and Hartline. During Hill's final 2 seasons at Ohio State, Brian Hartline was his position coach. That means Hartline didn't just recruit Hill, he coached him, developed him, and helped prepare him for the next level. Now, years later, the roles are reversed. Hill is stepping into coaching himself, joining the USF staff as an offensive analyst. This is a huge opportunity for Hill and a smart move by Hartline. Analysts are often behind-the-scenes teachers, breaking down film, helping game plan, and working closely with position groups. For a former receiver who played at a high level, that's the perfect entry point into coaching. And make no mistake, this is likely just the beginning of Hill's coaching journey. Toby Wilson added to offensive line staff. Now let's talk about Toby Wilson, a name that might be less flashy to casual fans but just as important for building a football program. Wilson played at Ohio State from 2021 to 2024 after joining the Buckeyes as a walk-on. He spent his entire career as a reserve player, but that doesn't mean he didn't learn. In fact, players like Wilson often make excellent coaches because they understand the grind, the details, and the discipline required to survive at the highest level without being a star. Wilson is now joining USF as an assistant offensive line coach, working under the guidance of offensive coordinator Tim Beck, another familiar name to Buckeye fans. And here's another layer to this story. Toby Wilson is the son of Kevin Wilson, the former Ohio State offensive coordinator. Football knowledge runs deep in this family, and Hartline clearly values that experience and background as he builds his staff. Tim Beck, another Ohio State connection. Speaking of Tim Beck, yes, that Tim Beck, he's now the offensive coordinator at USF, and he's once again working alongside former Ohio State players and staff. This creates a coaching environment that feels familiar, aligned, and unified. And that matters more than people realize. When a staff shares a common background, communication improves. Expectations are clearer. The culture develops faster. That's exactly what Hartline is trying to replicate from his time in Columbus. He's not just building a team, he's building a system. Ohio State transfers already following Hartline. And it's not just coaches. Hartline has already brought in former Ohio State players through the transfer portal, and this trend could continue as USF becomes a landing spot for Buckeyes looking for opportunity, development, and playing time. This is how programs rise quickly. We've seen it happen before. Coaches leave power programs. They bring the culture with them. They attract familiar players. And suddenly, the rebuild is years ahead of schedule. USF is clearly trying to do just that. Can Hartline rebuild Ohio State's culture at USF? That's the big question. Ohio State's culture is built on accountability, elite development, and winning expectations. Bringing that to a group of 5 program isn't easy, but Hartline has the blueprint. By hiring former players like Hill and Wilson, he's ensuring that his message is delivered by people who have lived it, not just studied it. That's powerful, and it sends a message to recruits, transfers, and fans. This program is serious about changing what this means for the future. These hires might not make national headlines, but they're exactly the kind of moves that quietly transform programs. KJ Hill brings player perspective and receiver expertise. Toby Wilson brings discipline and technical knowledge. Tim Beck provides structure and experience. Brian Hartline provides vision and leadership. That's how you lay a foundation. And if USF starts winning, don't be surprised if this coaching tree keeps growing with even more Buckeye connections. For Ohio State fans, this is a fun storyline, seeing former Buckeyes spread their influence across the country. For USF fans, it's a sign that the program is finally building with purpose. Brian Hartline isn't just hiring coaches. He's building a family, and that might be the most important part of all. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you subscribe, drop a like, and comment below. Do you think Hartline can turn USF into a real contender? Let me know what you think.